January 27, 1978. Sacramento, California. A woman opens the door to visit her neighbor and freezes. There's blood on the floor. A trail leads inside. She steps in and screams. On the living room carpet lies a mother, naked, lifeless. Her stomach is cut open. Her baby is missing. Just days earlier, a man had murdered an entire family. The police had no leads. No suspects. Now, a second crime. More brutal. More insane. And the killer? He drinks blood, eats body parts, and believes his heart is shrinking. This is not fiction. This is the story of Richard Chase, the Vampire of Sacramento. Watch till the end. Subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. December 29, 1977. What Avenue, Sacramento, California, USA. It was a cold, cloudy afternoon. The kind of day where people stay inside and drink coffee. The sky was gray. The trees were bare. The air felt heavy, like something bad was coming. On a quiet street near Watt Avenue, a man walked alone. He wore dirty clothes. His hair was a mess. His eyes sunken, wide, strange. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His name was Richard Trenton Chase. He was 27 years old. And he believed his blood was turning to powder. He knocked on a door. No one answered. He walked to the back. The sliding door was locked. So, he walked away. But later that day, he would find another door. One that wasn't locked. And when he did, something evil entered Sacramento. The house belonged to Ambrose Griffin, a 51-year-old man. He was bringing groceries inside with his wife. Out of nowhere, bang! Ambrose clutched his chest and fell. Another bang. His wife screamed. 2 shots rang out. Random. Fast. Without warning. The killer never entered the house. He shot Ambrose, then disappeared. Police found a .22 caliber shell. But no motive. No connection. It looked like a drive-by. They didn't know, it was the beginning. Richard was testing something. He wanted to see what it felt like to kill. And when he liked it, he started planning for more. Richard lived alone in a small apartment. The windows were covered with foil. The smell was awful, like dead animals and mold. Inside, he had hundreds of empty Coke cans. Rotting meat in the sink. Used syringes. Blood-stained walls. He believed people were trying to poison him. He thought his heart stopped beating. He injected rabbit blood into his veins to fix it. Richard was sick. Very sick. Years earlier, he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. But he stopped taking his pills. He believed soap could steal his skin. He wore orange peels on his head to absorb thoughts. He thought his bones were moving inside his body. And worst of all, he believed the only cure was drinking human blood. At night, Richard chased cats and dogs. He killed them, cut them open, and drank their blood. Sometimes he'd call the local animal shelter, pretending to adopt. He'd take the animals home, kill them quietly, and keep their organs. Neighbors heard screams. But no one knew it was him. And when animals were no longer enough, he began stalking people. Richard had a rule. If your door was locked, you were safe. If it was open, he believed that meant he was welcome inside. He walked around Sacramento for hours, testing doors, peeking into windows. One day, he entered a woman's home. She screamed. He ran. But he wasn't done. He was getting braver. More wild. more sure that he needed to kill again. January 23, 1978. East Sacramento. Teresa Wallin was 3 months pregnant. Her husband had just left for work. She took out the trash. That's when Richard saw her. He followed her back inside. Teresa didn't lock the door. She never had to. Minutes later, a neighbor heard a loud thud. Then silence. Hours passed. Teresa's husband returned. And what he saw would haunt him forever. Blood everywhere. Her body was cut open. Parts of her were missing. Richard had taken organs. Smeared blood on the walls. Used a yogurt cup to drink it. The police were speechless. No one could understand why. And they had no idea who had done it. But Richard was just getting started. Previously, Richard Chase murdered Teresa Wallin, a pregnant woman, in her home. He drank her blood and mutilated her body. The police were left stunned. No fingerprints. No suspect. No motive. And worse, no idea what was coming next. The police looked everywhere. They interviewed neighbors. They searched for anyone suspicious. But nothing made sense. There was no robbery. No sexual assault. Just pure horror. Like a ritual. Like something out of a nightmare. They checked mental hospitals. But didn't know Richard had been released years ago. They had no idea he was planning his next kill. Richard couldn't stop thinking about Teresa. He returned to her house days after the murder. He stood outside. Looked through the window. But the police had already been there. The body was gone. The blood was cleaned. He felt angry. He wanted more. He needed blood. And now he wanted more than just one victim. January 27, 1978. What Avenue, Sacramento. Evelyn Meyereth was 36. She was babysitting her 22-month-old nephew, David. Her son Jason, 6 years old, was playing in the front room. A friend, Dan Meredith, came over to check on her. Richard was already outside. He saw the door was unlocked. He walked in. No one screamed. No one had time. One by one. Richard shot them all. Dan shot in the hallway. Jason shot in the head. Evelyn, in the bathroom, dragged to the bedroom. Then the baby, little David, taken. Blood everywhere. Footsteps in the mess. And worst of all, Richard did things no one could imagine. Hours later, a neighbor knocked. No answer. She opened the door. The smell hit first. Then, the blood. It was on the carpet. On the walls. Like someone painted the house with it. She screamed and ran. Police rushed in. What they found shook them to their core. Evelyn was lying on the bed. Her body cut open. Blood drained into a bucket. Her stomach was torn. Parts of her liver were missing. And near her, a blood-soaked knife, a yogurt cup, and human organs. But the baby was gone. News broke fast. The headlines called him a monster. Sacramento slaughter. Vampire killer strikes again. Baby missing after mass murder. People locked their doors. Gun sales went up. Parents pulled their kids out of school. No one knew who he was. No one knew where he would strike next. But police found one clue, a bloody handprint. They sent it to the lab. They checked hospital records. They looked for mental patients. Finally, they found something. One man saw the news. He remembered a strange guy from high school. Always talking about blood. Always dirty, alone, staring. His name? Richard Chase. He called the police. "I think this is your guy." Officers ran his name. And there it was, a file. Mental illness. Animal abuse. A past arrest for injecting rabbit blood. A report from a mother who said he tried to enter her house. They now had a name. But where was he? Detectives tracked down Richard's apartment. They knocked. Silence. They waited. Then pretended to leave. And Richard opened the door. They rushed in. What they found inside was beyond belief. Blood-stained pans. Blenders filled with red liquid. A refrigerator full of body parts. Bones. Organs. Blood. And in the trash, baby clothes. Soaked in blood. They had their killer. This is a real story. Every fact you hear is public. You can check it yourself. If real-life mysteries leave you breathless, subscribe now to Unbelievable True Story. Because the next truth we uncover might hit even closer to home. Richard didn't fight. He didn't scream. He just sat and smiled. At first, he denied everything. Then, he started talking. He said his blood was turning to dust. He needed fresh blood to survive. He believed Nazis were controlling his brain. That UFOs were watching him. That his stomach was backwards. He said the baby's brain was too soft to eat. And that the organs he took were gifts to the moon. Detectives were horrified. He wasn't just a killer. He was lost in madness. Richard was charged with 6 murders. His defense claimed insanity. The prosecution wanted the death penalty. In court, he sat silent. Sometimes laughing. Sometimes muttering to himself. He drew pictures of hearts with blood inside. He told his lawyer the prison guards were poisoning him. The jury didn't believe he was insane enough. They believed he knew what he was doing. In 1980, Richard Chase was sentenced to death in the gas chamber. But he wouldn't make it that far. Richard Chase was locked in San Quentin State Prison. Death row. He was alone. Other inmates avoided him. Even killers were afraid of him. They called him Dracula. They said he smelled like death. Guards watched him 24/7. He wouldn't eat. He believed his food was poisoned. He said his stomach was disappearing. He wrote letters to the FBI. He begged them to test his food. He said his blood was vanishing again. Each day, he faded more. Thinner. Colder. More paranoid. But no one believed him. On December 26, 1980, a guard checked Richard's cell. He didn't respond. They opened the door. He was lying on his bed, still. Pale. Mouth open. Empty pill bottles beside him. Richard had saved his anti-anxiety pills for weeks. And took them all at once. He died at age 30. Alone. Afraid. Still believing the government was after him. The vampire killer was dead. The city of Sacramento breathed again. People still locked their doors. But the fear started to fade. Still, many questions were left behind. Could this have been stopped? Why was he released from psychiatric care? How many signs were ignored? The Wallin, Meyereth, Meredith, Griffin, and Ferrell families mourned in silence. No justice could undo what had been done. Some people still won't speak about it. Too much pain. Too much horror. Richard had once been a normal boy. Shy. Quiet. But not violent. In high school, he started changing. He talked about the blood pressure and heart stopping. He once showed up at school with animal blood on his shirt. No one stepped in. No one stopped him. He fell through cracks. Ignored by doctors. Feared by neighbors. Even his mother saw signs. but didn't get him help. He told people he needed blood. They thought it was just weird talk. But it was a warning. And no one listened. Years have passed. The homes are quiet now. The walls repainted. The carpets replaced. But the stories remain. In Sacramento, some people still whisper his name. Richard Chase. A man who didn't kill for money. Didn't kill for revenge. He killed to survive a fantasy. He believed the only cure was inside others. Inside their bodies. Inside their blood. This is not fiction. Every detail is part of a real case you can verify yourself. The names, the dates, the crime scenes, all real. And the most terrifying part? Richard Chase was walking free right up until the very end. There's a file. A real one. With photos. Notes. Blood reports. Eyewitness accounts. It sits locked in an evidence room in Sacramento. Some officers won't open it. They say the photos are too disturbing. One image shows a child's crib, bloodied, empty. Another shows Richard's kitchen, a blender filled with red foam. His drawings, stick figures with bleeding hearts. He was only 30 when he died. But the horror he caused will last forever. Have you ever heard this story before? Do you think he was truly insane, or something darker? If real stories that stay with you matter, subscribe now to @Unbelievable True Story. Because every week, we reveal the darkest truths hidden in plain sight. Previously, Richard Chase murdered 6 people in Sacramento. He drank blood, ate organs, stole a baby. He was arrested, sent to death row. But before execution, he took his own life and left behind a trail of horror no one could explain. When police searched Richard's apartment, they found strange things. A calendar with red XS marked over certain dates. They believed these were his hunting days. Some excess was still ahead. Inside his freezer, cow's liver, animal kidneys, blended raw meat mixed with blood. A note said, "Too warm outside. Wait for rain." In his closet, women's shoes, a child's stuffed animal, photos of people he never met, and behind his bathroom mirror, a small vial labeled life. It was filled with blood. Richard's mother, Chris, was one of the few people he trusted. But even she didn't understand how far he had fallen. She once said, he would come over for dinner, then talk about Nazis controlling the water. I thought it was just stress. She knew he killed animals. He brought her dead cats once. She told him to stop. When he was arrested, she told reporters, "He wasn't a monster. He was my son. He was sick. No one helped." She blamed the hospitals. She blamed the pills. But deep down, she blamed herself. In 1976, Richard was committed to a psychiatric hospital. Doctors diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. They called him dangerous and delusional. But after 6 months, he was released, deemed stable under medication. One note said, "Patient drinks blood from birds and animals. Shows signs of severe psychosis. Lacks understanding of right and wrong. Recommends long-term care." But the hospital was overcrowded. Funding was low. They needed beds. And so, Richard Chase walked free. Many people never forgot Richard. Not just the families of the dead, but others who came close. Susan, a young mother, remembered. "He came to my door once. Said he was with a plumbing company. I shut it fast. Found out later, he killed someone 2 blocks away." Another man, Harold, said, "He used to sit at the park, watching kids. I thought he was weird. But I never thought vampire weird. Survivors were everywhere. People who lived by locking the door. Richard had one belief. If your door was locked, you were safe. If it was open, you had invited him in. He told detectives, if the door is locked, it means you're protected. If it's open, then God has allowed it. This rule saved dozens of people. But it doomed others. The police found fingerprints on 9 doors. 9 homes he tried to enter. 5 were locked. 4 were not. 3 of those became murder scenes. Before his death, Richard spoke to prison staff. He wrote strange notes. He believed his blood was evaporating. He told a chaplain, "They put poison in my soap. If I eat, my heart stops." To a nurse, "The moon told me I'll be reborn. I'm not done yet." He refused showers. Slept standing up. Stared at walls for hours. Some guards thought he was faking. Others felt a strange chill around him. One said, "When he looked at you, it felt like he could see inside your skin." None of this is fiction. Every record, every note, every quote is real. You can look it up. The Vampire of Sacramento lived. And his darkness still lingers in the pages of police files and locked drawers. After the case closed, experts asked, could he have been stopped? Should he have stayed locked up? Were there warnings we missed? One psychiatrist said, Richard Chase was not born evil. But left untreated, his mind became a nightmare world, and he brought others into it. Parents now lock their doors. Hospitals now track patient histories. Police now take animal cruelty seriously. But even with all of that, there's no undoing what Richard did. No one can bring back the baby, or the mother, or the families who still can't sleep at night. There is one folder still locked in Sacramento Police HQ. It holds unused crime scene photos, Richard's personal diary, letters never released to the public. It's marked with a red stamp, level 5, restricted. Some say inside it is the full truth. Others say it's too disturbing to release. A journalist once tried to open it. She got close, then suddenly dropped the case. She only said, "Some things are better left buried." Previously, Richard Chase's murders shocked America. 6 people dead. A baby stolen. Organs consumed. He was arrested and sentenced to death. But he took his own life in prison before facing execution. And still, questions linger. Detectives once laid out a large map of Sacramento. They pinned every location tied to Richard. The apartment he lived in. The homes he visited. The schools he walked past. The dumpsters where he dumped organs. The house where the baby's clothes were found. It formed a twisted web. A tight circle less than 3 miles wide. All his victims were neighbors. He didn't travel far. The monster was already inside the city. And no one knew. Weeks after Richard's arrest, a park ranger made a discovery. Behind a church. Buried under dirt and leaves. Wrapped in a blood-stained blanket. It was the body of 22-month-old David Ferreira. He had been shot in the head. His chest cut open. Police wept. Even hardened detectives broke down. The case file says, victim was disposed of gently. Killer likely felt remorse or confusion. But no one knows for sure. It was the final piece. And the most heartbreaking. After the Chase case, mental health laws changed. Hospitals began stricter evaluations. Psychiatric patients could be held longer. Animal cruelty was tracked as a possible warning sign. And police learned to listen to neighbors who said, "He gives me a bad feeling." It didn't undo the horror, but it stopped others from slipping through. Some call it the Chase effect. Richard had gone to high school, had a mother, lived in an apartment, shopped at the same grocery stores as everyone else. He looked tired, maybe sick. But no one saw a killer. He walked the streets, while voices screamed in his head. He smiled at neighbors, while thinking about blood. What if one person had noticed sooner? What if one doctor had spoken louder? Would Teresa still be alive? Would baby David still be safe? These are the questions that never fade. A few months before his death, a psychiatrist interviewed Richard in prison. He asked, "Why blood?" Richard replied, "Because mine isn't real anymore. It dries up. It turns to sand. I need others to survive." The doctor asked, "Do you regret what you did?" Richard blinked. He whispered, "I regret being caught," then smiled. In his cell, Richard spent time drawing. Hundreds of pages. Most were in red ink. People with no eyes. Creatures with bones outside their skin. A man with wires coming out of his head. Sons dripping blood. One figure holding a baby in one hand, a knife in the other. Some of the drawings are in police archives today. Others were destroyed. A guard once said, "It felt like looking into hell." Like his hands didn't draw them, something else did. After Richard's arrest, an investigator recorded a 2-hour interview. Richard talked about the killings. In slow, calm voice. He described what blood tastes like, why he liked warm bodies, why he never chose old people, and what he planned to do if he wasn't caught. The tape was never released publicly. Only a few people heard it. One of them later quit the force. He said, "There are things you can't unhear." Even today, some Sacramento locals say the homes Richard visited are cursed. One woman moved into the Wallen house. She lasted only 3 weeks. She said, "I heard crying at night. The lights flickered. My dog refused to enter the bathroom. I looked it up and saw the name Richard Chase. I moved out the next morning." Some say it's just fear. Others believe evil leaves a stain. Decades later, Evelyn Meyereth's surviving relatives gave an interview. They said, "We try not to say his name. He took everyone from us, Evelyn, Jason, David. There's no fixing that." One added, "We live with 2 truths. That monsters are real, and that they don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they knock during the day, and you open the door." Previously, Richard Chase murdered 6 people in Sacramento, including a baby. He drank blood. He believed his own body was rotting. He died in prison by suicide before his execution. The case changed laws, haunted families, and left behind questions no one could answer. After the crime, baby David Ferreira's crib remained untouched. A tiny pillow. A soft blanket. A rattle still hanging from the bar. His mother never spoke publicly. Too broken. Family members said. She never celebrated birthdays again. Never put up decorations. That crib stayed in the room for years, covered in dust. But she couldn't let it go. It became a symbol, not just of loss, but of the deep wound Richard left behind. In the years after the murders, Sacramento changed. People stopped trusting strangers. Locks became stronger. Psychiatric evaluations became stricter. Parents stopped letting kids walk home alone. The city didn't forget, but it never fully healed. A retired detective said, "You can fix windows. You can repaint walls. But how do you fix the silence left in a house like that?" Richard Chase didn't kill for money. He didn't kill for rage. He killed to stop a nightmare inside his own mind. He believed people were trying to steal his organs. He thought his blood was turning to powder. He believed the moon was whispering instructions. Some call him insane. Some call him evil. But one thing is clear. He was a real man. With real victims. In a real neighborhood. That now knows what true horror feels like. Imagine this. It's 1978. You're home alone. You hear a knock. It's just a man, thin, quiet, polite. You open the door. And that's it. That's how it began for all of them. Not with a scream, but with a door left unlocked. There's a photo in the corner of the Sacramento archives. Not shown to the public. Tucked in a folder labeled, Chase, Final. It shows Richard's prison cell. Right before he died. A bare bed. Pill bottles lined in a row. A drawing on the wall of a heart, cracked in half. And below it, 3 words. It wasn't enough. No one knows what he meant. No one ever will. This is a true story. Every victim was real. Every detail has been verified. The homes exist. The court files exist. The horror was real. Richard Chase wasn't a myth. He was someone's neighbor. Someone's patient. Someone's warning sign that was missed. And today, the house still stands. Silent. Empty. But stained forever. No family has moved in. No laughter returned. Only questions remain. Could it have been stopped? Would one locked door have saved a life? How many Richard Chases are still out there, walking free? Have you heard this story before? What would you have done if Richard knocked on your door? Would you have locked it? Or opened it, without knowing? If stories like this send chills down your spine, subscribe now to Unbelievable True Story. Because every week, we bring you the darkest truths hidden in plain sight. Watch the next video on your screen. Or dive into our playlist of real crimes,